So I've just watched a report from Vice. It's an online news, sort of, I guess you would call it freelance journalism. They come out with some very interesting videos, and I enjoy their style of reporting because they come out with the sort of things that don't generally make headline news, but are nevertheless interesting and significant. So the report I've just watched was something I already knew about, but I've seen new angles to it, and sort of, yeah. So not long ago, a Chinese billionaire, Chen Guangbiao, who's quite an eccentric character, put an advertisement in the New York Times, I believe it was, saying that he would feed 1,000 of the city's poor, homeless, and give them each $300 after a meal. Well, this Vice report shows that there was a lot of miscommunication or misleading going on, because the people who turned up got quite angry when it was announced Chen was working in conjunction with something, I believe it's called the New York City Mission. It's a homeless charity, and their spokespeople announced that there would be no cash handout, and rather Chen would give $90,000 to help support the work of the mission. Now, there was anger among the people who had gathered there because they had been led to believe that they would get $300, and they got very angry about that. They felt they were being exploited, they felt they were being misled. The comments underneath were mixed. A lot of them were saying that this is a case of entitlement, and these people have got a free meal, so what are they complaining about? And it's a sort of notion of entitlement. My own line on homelessness, I'm very, very reluctant to judge any homeless person, because I can't imagine the sort of psychological pressures they would be under. Although I did feel uncomfortable when they were attacking the very people that are in the business of helping them, which is the New York City Mission. However, I do feel that they had some right to be angry because they had been misled. Nevertheless, they got a free meal, so you know, it's some would say they're being ungrateful. A few words about Chen himself. This guy is certainly, I don't know that much about him, but he's certainly quite an eccentric character. I commented recently on a video in which he sort of presented two women who were horribly burned, two Chinese women, and this was part of something whereby he was trying to make the case that there was no English translation, but it was this hall in New York City, and he was saying that these women had been victims of Falun Gong, which is a controversial organization. I've made another video about that, you can check it out, but basically he was saying that Falun Gong brainwashed them into burning themselves, whereas Falun Gong deny that the women had any connection with them, and there's a lot of there's two sides to that argument. But anyway, there's no question about it. Chen is, as a CPC apologist, he's a Chinese Communist Party PR man. There's absolutely no question about that, because apparently the people who turned up to this dinner, they were singing "We Are the World," Michael Jackson's "We Are the World," but it's my understanding there was also Communist Party songs sang at that. So it was sort of a bit of a stunt by Mr. Chen to promote the Chinese Communist Party. And the sort of slogan that was going on there was that people like him are the new Li Feng. And there was bizarre scenes of people dressed up in Maoist uniforms outside. They looked like, I don't know if they were Chinese Americans or a lot of white Americans as well, very pro-China white Americans. It's only an 8-minute video, but it's quite revealing. Li Feng, incidentally, was a young soldier who died in an accident it was either the early 60s or the early 50s. I remember when I was teaching in China, there was a picture of him in every room, every classroom. So he's sort of like a popular culture hero in a sense, something akin to Robin Hood in England, a modern day Robin Hood in China, something like that. Although it's not, I don't mean robbing from the rich to give to the poor, but I mean a sort of legendary figure. Some people believe he didn't even exist. There's very, very, very few photos of him, if any. But Mao used this sort of image of a role model citizen. So there's this notion that Chen Guangbiao is the new Li Feng, and one reason he done this was to counter American stereotypes about Chinese, the wealthy Chinese. Personally, I don't entirely trust the guy, and I'm sorry if that sounds cynical, but the reality is, in order to get to that sort of level in China, probably you could argue in any society, but in China especially, you need certain connections. There's something called guanxi, which is sort of loosely translates as relations, business relations. So in order to go far in China, you need to have some sort of connections with the Communist Party. It's the only way. So it's not surprising to me that he's went out of his way to be a bit of a PR man for the CPC. He wanted to buy the New York Times, and thank goodness they've turned that down. I say thank goodness because if he does, he'll just fill it full of one-party propaganda about how wonderful China is, how wonderful the Communist Party is, and whitewash all of their crimes. There were a few Chinese protesters outside the park, outside the restaurant. I don't know if they were Falun Gong people, but they were saying China is robbers, China is evil. This was Chinese people. So all in all, it's a bit of a circus. I've mixed views on it. If on one hand I think maybe he is genuinely benevolent, but I just know that in China, to get to that sort of level, you can't get there without fucking some people over, or without having close connections to the one-party regime, which automatically, I believe, corrupts your character if you're that close to an authoritarian regime. So I don't entirely trust him, but I think he's almost like China's Richard Branson. He's a bit of an eccentric and a bit of a showman. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. So I'll put a link to the video. I'll let you judge for yourself. I don't want to demonize Mr. Chen because he might well just be a generous man, you know, and whatever way you look at it, he's done some good work there. I mean, 90,000 to a homeless mission, you can't fault that, whatever way you look at it. By the way, the homeless people were getting angry with the spokespeople because they said that was slandering their character. The mission said we take the policy that it's better to keep this money rather than put it into their hands, and they were getting angry because they thought that insinuated they were going to spend it on drugs and so on. The problem is, I've studied the subject of homelessness a bit, and it's indisputable that drug dependency is much, much higher among homeless people than it is for non-homeless. So maybe the mission is taking some pragmatic steps, I don't know. But for those people, I can understand their disappointment. Others are saying they have a sense of entitlement, but the point here is not about getting money, it's about being misled. And I think anyone would be frustrated with that, not just... I don't know, I've just mixed views on it. So watch the video yourself, see what you think. I'll put a link to it here.